It's hard to let a day go past and not be reminded of the extensive range of environmental issues we are currently facing. From pollution to all kinds, to overfishing and unsustainable fishing practices, the world as we know it is under threat, and research has shown that humans have been the cause of many of these issues. However, what I am presenting to you today is not a discussion on environmental issues or how we solve them, but instead a discussion on how we, as communicators, can use visual communication design to help shift people's current behaviours into more environmentally friendly behaviours. My name is Ty Reading, and I'm a PhD design candidate at the University of Newcastle. Today's discussion reports on my progress over the last 3 years. Each day, we are inundated with many different forms of communication, from social media posts to traditional printed media. In 2021, many of these forms of communication are talking about environmental disasters. The challenge now is for communicators to design and implement communication that can stand out from the masses and influence people to take action. Just as challenging are the visual aspects of these communications. This is where my research lies. Drawing upon research from the fields of communication, visual communication design, marketing, and social sciences, this research aims to support the development of more successful visual environmental campaigns for non-for-profit organisations. Little attention has been paid to the role of visual communication, one of the main communication forms used in environmental campaigns. This research has the potential to assist communicators in the strategic development of environmental campaigns, utilising the strengths of visual communication design in the process to achieve their desired outcomes. Visual communication design can play a major role in the prevention of future environmental issues, and communicators should have an understanding of the barriers that prevent people from behaving pro-environmentally before attempting to influence those behaviours. Some barriers can include a lack of knowledge or awareness of the consequences, feelings that individual actions are insignificant, or there is an unwillingness to change lifestyle behaviours. A theoretical framework that will guide the analysis of the development of the visual environmental campaigns has been developed and incorporates research on key human behaviour theories. These theories include Martin Fishbein and Isaac Acton's theory of reasoned action and further theory of planned behaviour, Everett Rogers' diffusion of innovation theory, and Shalom Schwartz' norm activation theory. These theories have been widely accepted and hold contemporary value in the social sciences. This research uses both practice-based and case study methodologies to examine the role of visual communication, specifically on marine environmental campaigns. Because individuals seek an understanding of the world in which they live and work and develop meanings of their experiences, it follows a constructivist ontological perspective. The primary research methods that have been employed include interviews and thematic and semiotic analysis, and draws upon data sources gained through literature and collaboration with non-for-profit organisations. The theoretical framework that has been produced is now in its fourth revision. It has been developed based on an extensive literature review in varying fields of psychology and human behaviour. And before I present and discuss the framework, it's important to discuss some of the key findings that influence the structure of this framework. Human behaviour is complicated, and the reasons why someone does or does not act in a pro-environmental way is too. Barriers that prevent people from acting pro-environmentally are generally both external and internal. Some external factors include economic barriers, such as a lack of financial resources, cultural barriers, such as the beliefs and cultural acceptances, and social barriers, such as lack of time or accessibility to resources. The internal factors are communicative and educative in nature and include a lack of knowledge, the feelings of helplessness, a lack of moral obligation, and the skepticism in the seriousness of the issue. We also know that attitudes about particular issues can be a strong barrier for individuals to perform or not perform a particular behaviour. Our reaction to other people, issues, and products are often guided by our attitudes, but it is extremely difficult to predict people's behaviour from their attitudes alone. Casson argues that there are three components that form attitudes. They are cognitive, affective, and behavioural. If we were to apply this to people's attitudes to environmental issues, the cognitive component is what an individual knows about the environment. The affective component is concerned with the emotional reaction an individual has to the environment. And the behavioural component is the behavioural intention an individual has towards the environment. By studying social sciences and environmental psychology and its connection to visual environmental campaigns, This research can learn what drives human actions and help prevent unsustainable behaviours from negatively impacting our environment. The barriers mentioned here are important to consider when discussing the theoretical framework. The framework that is presented is intended to follow a linear process, as you can see. It can begin at any stage provided that the previous stages have been addressed and is used as an evaluative and developmental tool for non-for-profit organisations. I'll now discuss a brief overview of this framework. The first stage is knowledge. It's about the environment, and environmental issues may generate positive attitudes, which in turn can form good intentions. Providing information about environmental issues is assumed to increase environmental concern and to promote more effective pro-environmental intentions. Knowledge is key in providing audiences with environmental literacy, which reflects on an individual's ability to process information, content, sources, quality, and effect of said information. The well-known theory of planned behaviour assumes that an individual has acquired the resources to be successful in performing the desired behaviour. From an awareness campaign perspective, if the communicator is to assume that the individual has all required resources to achieve campaign goals, they then must provide those resources. The framework then moves into awareness, primarily awareness of consequences and actions of behaviours. Environmental awareness can be an important factor towards determining eco-friendly behaviour. Without knowledge on environmental issues, an individual is often unaware of the consequences of their behaviour. Without awareness of these issues, people tend to not support the behaviour and be unwilling to participate in the desired action. The third stage is attitudes, which can be formed about almost anything, including other people, social ideologies, and political concepts. According to the theory of planned behaviour, pro-environmental behaviour can be performed if an individual holds a positive attitude towards the environment. Attitudes are significant because they can determine behaviour that can impact environmental quality. The gap between attitudes and actual behaviour is shaped by a number of political and social factors, such as personal values and geographical locations. Attitudes do not determine behaviour directly, rather they influence behavioural intentions, which in turn shape our actions. The final stage of the framework is norms, which are a combination of personal norms, social norms, and normative beliefs. We know that people feel good about their behaviour if they follow these norms in their actions. Schwartz believes that behavioural regulation is driven by internal processes rather than external processes, with personal norms being derived from elaborate reasoning and reflection of social expectations. Personal norms may be neutralised by an individual denying the consequences of their actions or responsibility to take action, which presents a key challenge for communicators. It's also important to note that people with strong personal norms are less likely to be swayed by messages that indicate what other people are doing or not doing. The accepted social behaviour, which are social norms, are a learned set of social rules to guide an individual into certain actions and situations. Within the theory of reasoned actions and the theory of planned behaviour, social norms are considered as the social pressures to perform or not perform a behaviour. There are conflicts in what we want to do and what a subjective norm or social norm is informing us to do. We may act in ways inconsistent with our attitudes. If an individual is in doubt, they'll often look at other people's behaviour to guide their own. What I've told you just before is a lot of information, and I hope that you can see that the challenges I face when applying these concepts to visual communication design. Now we'll move into the framework in action as applied to the campaigns that I've been working on over the past year. With the framework at its core, a collaboration between two non-for-profit organisations have taken place. These organisations are Sea Shepherd Australia and Australian Marine Conservation Society, both of which are focused on protecting the marine environment. While this research has been fortunate in working with organisations across 3 campaigns, I'll only show one today and really focus on that. This is the Apex Harmony campaign from Sea Shepherd Australia. Apex Harmony is an environmental campaign currently in action that is focused on reducing the impacts of lethal shark mitigation methods on Australia's east coast. The campaign goals are focused on changing government policy, removing shark nets and drumlines in Queensland during whale migration season, and changing the public's perception of sharks. As a grassroots, volunteer-led campaign, it was clear that there has not been a huge focus on the visual aspects of the campaign materials. The Sea Shepherd Australia website is a strong and effective website and clearly communicates what the organisation does. At the beginning of the collaboration, an initial report was created that identified opportunity areas that aligned with the framework in its earliest stages and had great potential to achieve organisational goals. While it is widely recognised that simply providing more information to the viewer does little to initiate any long-lasting behavioural changes, this research firmly believes that the viewer or user must have the required knowledge to change their behaviour. For this reason, the initial analysis of existing material indicated that more information needs to be provided to the audience. This could be through public engagement strategies, partnerships with schools, or an increase in social media campaigning. A sub-goal of the campaign was also to increase transparency to the public around the issue and what is being done from an organisational standpoint. To achieve this, the suggested strategy includes creating a clear and strategic social media campaign that directly discusses the effects of current shark bite mitigation methods. Within social media campaigns in particular, it's important to change people's attitudes about sharks, which is, as we know, one of the most challenging things you can do with a species such as sharks. It is suggested that the benefits of having them in our ocean for our ecosystem will be one of the main focuses. While increasing awareness on the issue, a social media campaign has the potential to effectively impact individuals and groups, therefore targeting personal and social norms. To do this, the campaign must be engaging and emotive and must have target demographics aligned. Further to this initial report, a more refined campaign plan, which you can see on the screen, was created that directly outlines action stages of the campaign, which can be seen on this map. It is important to note that this map was created in line with the original framework, so there's 7 stages in that, but it is still relevant to the stages that have been combined, has still relevant to the framework now because the stages have only been combined and they haven't actually been removed. So for instance, intentions is now part of attitudes, and normative beliefs, norms, and subjective norms, personal norms have been combined. Many of the actions that are presented on this map have been carried out, and some will be shown today. We can also see a clear connection between stages of the framework within this map, which is really useful for people to be able to see an overarching strategy for the campaign. So now I'll show you some of the work that has been produced over the past year. The first was the creation of a visual identity for the Apex Harmony campaign. The visual identity encapsulated the essence of the organisation and focused on using the edgy feel of Sea Shepherd. Here you can see the colour palette variations that are in line with the brand guidelines, primarily used on social media, but applied to various other collateral. The identity features the headline strips, always on the left, and includes geometric strip on the bottom to hold the logos. We've primarily used this in the black layout because it just seems to work better, but the option to having it in the white can break up the social media feeds as we need them to. Here you can see the identity applied to social media posts and stories. Depending on the context, the placement of the subcopy is adjusted to balance with the feature image that is used. At times, the bottom strip also has to be adjusted to accommodate the images, and this is often when we're applying this to social media stories, such as Instagram stories or Facebook stories. As part of the overall strategy, it was important to create an information sheet. This information sheet contains crucial information for the viewer, and a digital and printed variation has been created. These mainly contain hyperlinks or actual links that have been spelled out. This is to ensure accessibility is available to all people at any given time. The information sheet can be updated to suit the stage of the campaign and can easily communicate significant updates. So if they win a policy change or if they win a pledge, this will be really useful to use. Origami sheets were created that were intended to target younger audiences. This was due to the pandemic, and we wanted to reach more audiences on social media in a different and engaging way. There were 5 species that were created, which included whales, sharks, turtles, sea lions, and dolphins. And here you can see one of the social media carousels designs that we created that was to be using advertising the turtle. And so we really like to play around with mixing some of what was produced in Apex Harmony with the idea that the social media carousel could be a flowing and organic piece. We have also started to create simple infographics that you can see on the left and pushing targeted ads for petition signups and other little advertisement pieces that can be used, which really embody the visual identity. As a gift, we created a whale migration calendar that was emailed as a digital resource for the Sea Shepherd members. This included segmented information as well as useful calendar that aims to create more awareness on the overarching organizational goals and campaign goals. And it was well received. People found this really useful, and particularly around Australia, where we are very lucky to often see whales migrating on our coasts. And further, you can see more social media carousels that focus on changing the attitudes of sharks, which are at the top, and then further the aim of changing people's understanding of shark mitigation methods on our beaches, which are at the bottom. This was a combined project between many organisations, which did include Sea Shepherd Australia and Australian Marine Conservation Society. You can see throughout all of the materials that have been produced that the first 3 stages of the framework had primarily been the focus. These were knowledge, awareness, and attitudes. And the reason for this primarily is that we need to start making people more aware of what is happening and the impacts that government policy, as well as environmental impacts from ourselves and overfishing and targeting sharks, for instance, is doing. And then we can start really targeting the norm aspects of the campaign, which is going to be proving somewhat challenging. We have begun conducting interviews with both Sea Shepherd Australia and Australian Marine Conservation Society to gain feedback on the effectiveness of the framework. This feedback was primarily focused on the organisational effectiveness and usability of the framework, and any user testing that is expected to be included will be in postdoctoral research, and that'll primarily be on the actual users of the campaign and the audiences there. So there are 5 stages of the interviews that take place at different times of the campaign development life. They include stage 1, which is campaign plan drafting. Stage 2 is concept development stage. Stage 3 is the design stage. Stage 4 is implementation stage. And finally, stage 5 is the evaluation stage. The interviews so far have primarily been on stage 1 and 2. And the general feedback of the campaign plan and drafting for Sea Shepherd Australia have been overwhelmingly positive. The organisation believes that the introduction of the campaign plan was incredibly helpful, as the campaign is primarily led by volunteers. It was great to see that Sea Shepherd felt that the framework would be effective, and that a linear process and approach within the framework will be helpful for targeting different components of the campaign. The campaign development stage was very effective, and it was great to see that that everything that needs to be done within the campaign can be broken up and seen as an overarching strategy. The focus on social media of the social media campaign was considered to be a strength because pieces of information that was shared on social media was easy to digest and an easy way to learn about the issue. It was also a great way to segment information. The creative materials that were suggested demonstrates a strong ability to encapsulate the essence of the campaign and organisation. It appears to make the campaign feel more professional, which is important. Finally, Sea Shepherd felt that the concepts are engaging and assist in achieving the campaign goals. The framework can be seen to underpin the concept, which is very important. So what I have presented today is only part of the PhD research. The final creative outcome that is to be produced is a user guide that collates the strategies that have been explored and aligns the theoretical framework to said strategies. The guide will be designed as a digital platform and will be made available primarily for non-profit organisations. The hopes of this guide is that it will provide a more strategic approach to campaign development and help create a more sustainable and less environmentally damaged world. Now I need to keep pushing on and get this framework finished. Thank you.